Life comes with a lot of decisions, and it can be hard to know the right path sometimes. A therapist can help you map out what you really want, so you trust yourself to make great choices and feel excited about the future. BetterHelp offers convenient professional online therapy on your schedule, however you want it, by phone, chat, or video call. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/positive today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/positive.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here. Let's talk conference realignment. It's Jacob Albrock, Tommy Castor here on this Monday edition. It is a crazy time because you get lots of rumors, lots of insiders, lots of people on social media. There's people that are probably too defensive and not just more like, this is actual information that I've heard, blah, blah, blah. The Big 12 we know is added Colorado. It certainly seems like panic has set in the Pac-12. I don't think the media deal is there. Haven't thought it. I think their best play may honestly be to wait a little while, but I don't think teams are going to want to do that. So the Pac-12's in big trouble here. If you're the Big 12, Tommy, and we have all of the different rumors that have been out there, what do you think is the best case scenario for the Big 12? Is it Oregon and Washington, even though Brett McMurphy pointed out over the weekend, who's been all over this, it's sort of like, yeah, you can add them, but as soon as the Big 10 comes calling, they're going to leave, which I get that, right? So, is it those teams plus Arizona? Is UConn in the mix? Like, do you wait for the ACC? What is a best case scenario for you for the Big 12 as we move forward here?
Well, it's kind of a non-answer to your question. I think they're already there. I mean, honestly, wherever you go from here on out, you are adding strength to a conference that there have been questions for a long time about how stable they would be long-term. And those questions are largely gone now. So I don't want to say that it's all gravy because you've got teams that are clearly more valuable than others that are still potentially out there, universities, more valuable than others. I think Arizona, in my mind, I said it earlier, I think they are the next to go. And I think that they are a really good fit for the Big 12. You've got an opportunity to have, Tucson is a great college town. And I've even heard people on social media talking about you could have a rivalry between Arizona and Texas Tech and Tucson and Lubbock and, not that far away from each other, potentially being on the table. And then you've got, they're a big basketball school for sure, a heritage basketball program, adding to the already, large basketball prestige in the Big 12 would be beneficial also. So I think Arizona is the next to go. I like Oregon and Washington. I like their profiles. But yeah, Brett McMurphy is onto something where he says that, the Big Ten, as soon as they come calling, and they probably will come calling at some point for Oregon and Washington, they're probably going to jump ship. So maybe in the short term, that's great. I don't know what that looks like long term. I would be content with Arizona, and then you call it good.
So Tucson to Lubbock, by the way, is just a quick look, is 10 hours. So I don't know what that rivalry would be.
Not that far.
It's an easy flight. Phoenix, yeah. That's the thing. That's why I like Arizona. Like, geographically, it's great. I think that, their football profile would raise in the Big 12. Their basketball doesn't need to. But it's a place people would want to go, right? Like, there's no doubt about that. Arizona for sure is in for me. I don't know how to handle Oregon and Washington. I don't know how you handle the Big Ten component of that, and I don't know if you're Oregon and Washington what you do here. They're sort of like San Diego State was to the Mountain West, where it's like, yeah, we want to go. We don't really have an option now, so we're just going to hang tight. Oregon and Washington will eventually land somewhere, right? Like, they're not in danger like Oregon State or Washington State of not landing anywhere. They'll have a home somewhere. And in the short term, even if it's in the Pac-12 with a bad buyout or whatever, they're going to have a place, like if you're Oregon, and really Washington probably deserves to, you say this too, because they've been in the CFP. Like, they're going to be able to get into the CFP playing out of the Pac-12.
Yeah. So
I'm not sure their best option isn't to wait for the Big Ten if they have any indication the Big Ten is interested. That's what I don't know about the Big 12. I'd love to have them too. Would I love to have them only in the short term? The only reason I think that there's risk in that is that if they join the Big 12 and then left for the Big 10, that's a perceived weakness now, right? Like you've now perceived weakness that you're getting poached again. I don't know that the Big 12 ever wants to be in the business of being poached again. So can you get Oregon and Washington? Can you convince them that, listen, here's what we're doing? And as I said last week, this isn't about the current TV deal, which is good, right? It's fine. It's about the next TV deal in 4 or 5 years from now. Or what is it, 5 or 6 years from now? That's where we really think we're going to be able to capitalize. And is the Big 12 going to be the third best league when the dust settles on this? When the ACC ultimately gets poached, right? Is the Big 12 going to be in a position here to be in there? Or if you're Oregon and Washington, do you say, I don't know what assurances you can get. I just don't know. And there's obvious risk in adding them. And so I'm not sure that what the best answer is there.
I mean, I think on paper, Oregon and Washington, like it works on paper, but I mean, I think there are too many unknowns. And, if they've got that desire to go to the Big Ten, that's pretty risky on the part of Brett Yormark. And while Yormark has been very aggressive, he also has not taken big time risks either. Like he's been very strategic in the moves that he's made. And so I'm not sure that Oregon and Washington, knowing that risk exists, would really be the best bet for them.
Well, it's impossible unless you have part of the conversations. It's just impossible to know. And I don't think you can negotiate different buyouts for different schools. I don't think you can do that. So you have to. It's just there's a lot of risk there, but there's upside too because here's the reality. I don't know when the Big Ten would like to expand. My guess is it would be closer to when they think they can also go after ACC schools. So let's say it's 3 years from now at minimum. Let's say you add Washington and Oregon, and you've got them for 3 years at least, right? If you could get that, I do think there could be value in increasing that brand, increasing that league, and getting closer to that next renegotiation window, right? Because at that point, you think if your brand is – and I think this is the goal for Yormark. I think he's trying to get closer to the other two with the next deal. And so if they come in and it's all fine and dandy and you're sitting here, maybe there isn't a need at that point to leave because you're in a great place. And so that's a part of it too. Like how quickly, like if you guys are going to leave, how quickly is that going to happen? And I don't know how you guess that if you're the Big 12, because at any point the Big 10 could expand it, right? But it's like, I don't know what their rules are on expansion with this new deal that they've done. Can they, like the Big 12, just add members that get full value? That's something to consider too. I don't know the answer to that. That's not a hypothetical question. That's a real question. I have no idea. I know it's that way in the Big 12. I think if you think you can have them for at least 3 or 4 years, you probably do it if you can, because it will help you down the road. Because at that point, too, at some point the ACC is going to get poached, and if they're in there, then you can start to shop around there just a little bit. And there is some perception that it will end up being the ACC versus the Big 12 as who's going to become that third. Well, the Big 12 right now has an opportunity to get stronger. The ACC, I don't think, can really do anything right now. So take advantage if you can. Here's the school I think that would be a shoe-in, no doubt about it. We got to get this school, is Utah. Utah is a team, I would be aggressive with Utah. And they've been pretty steadfast. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because they were, non-Power 5 for so long and then they finally get into the Pac-12. I don't know what it is about their resistance there, but Utah makes so dang much sense to me as far as like fitting the vibe of the Big 12. Utah fits it, right? Like it fits.
But hasn't Utah been very vocal in their support of the Pac-12?
Yes.
That's the difference between like in Arizona and in Utah.
Yeah,
Arizona's been very diplomatic.
Bygones here. Like who cares?
I just don't know. I'm not saying that the Big 12 doesn't pursue them because of the words they've used. I'm just saying I think it's legitimate that Utah's like, we don't want to do the Big 12. And I don't know. Well, I don't know. I mean, really, what's the other option? Like, hang on in the
quickly.
Pac-12,
right?
And I mean, because really, at the end of the day, the Pac-12 is probably going to end up as a glorified version of the Mountain West, right? Like you're going to have Fresno State and Boise State and, alongside Washington State and Oregon State and Stanford and Cal. By the way, think about how big of a cliff Stanford has fallen off from. And I know that there are so many other things that are important at Stanford outside of athletics, but it wasn't that long ago that Jim Harbaugh is the coach at Stanford and they're in the national spotlight. And now it's like nobody wants them, like they're on that same level as Cal and Washington State and Oregon State. Like it's kind of interesting.
I would tell you that I would take Stanford. Just by the way, if I had like a wish list of things that could matter for the Big 12, I would take Stanford. I would take Utah. I would actually take UConn, by the way. And I know that a lot of Big 12, diehard writers and forever beat writers have been anti-UConn. I would actually take UConn, and I would incur the risk. One, I would try to take them as a less expensive member, and then at the next negotiation, if they can get their football program up to snuff, maybe they become but I want UConn basketball. I want everything about UConn basketball. And by the way, if you're UConn, the difference in being a partial paid member, like you don't get as much as everybody else versus the Big East, is still better, right? And they can always go back, right? We know that now.
Yeah.
They can, and if the Big East doesn't want them, they can go back to the American, they can go back to the Atlantic 10, they can go back wherever they want.
I mentioned this to you over the weekend, and I know I think you kind of shot it down when I texted it to you, but man, I think that if I'm the Pac-12 and if I'm the ACC, why not merge at this point?
You do.
I mean, like, why not have these phone calls? Because the ACC is going to get poached. The Pac-12 has already been poached, and the Big 12 is not going anywhere. Why not join forces together and be like, look, for our own survivals, like, let's just come together. And you know what? The last couple of years, there have been these like ridiculous fake alliances.
Scheduling
that literally
alliances.
They mean nothing.
How'd that work out for the Pac-12 and Big 10?
It means not like I'm not talking about a fake, stupid alliance. I'm talking about let's merge. Let's save ourselves and come together. We can have a coast-to-coast conference. I don't know why why that's not in the discussion.
That's what the Pac-12 should have done with the Big 12, by the way.
Absolutely.
It won't happen because they're both thinking about their own survival, right? Like they're not thinking about a collective survival. And the ACC, by the way, probably and rightfully so, feels like when we get a chance to expand, we're going to have a chance to be just like the Big 12 and go get better, right? The Pac-12 doesn't feel that way right now to me. So the ACC is stuck in this waiting game to some degree. I agree with you. That is the best answer for those two leagues to do that. I just don't think they're going to. There's nothing historically now with several opportunities for leagues to do this that would tell you they would do it. The Big 12, I don't think would want that right now. I don't think I would want an all-out merger anymore if I'm the Big 12. I would rather poach the teams that I want. And
Sure.
I think Arizona and Utah are there. I would take Arizona, I would take Utah, I would take Washington, I would take Oregon. I think Stanford still fits. I don't know enough about Arizona State. I don't think so. And I would take UConn as a less than full member, just because I want that basketball brand and I want that geographic region on the table here. And then when time comes for the ACC, having UConn, having West Virginia, having Cincinnati makes a little more sense if you want to go just a little bit more east. Hey, Pitt, what are you doing, Pitt? You want to renew that rivalry with West Virginia? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Where's Memphis at? I mean, Memphis could be another possibility where you've got a profile there that might work.
I don't know why the Big 12 didn't go after Memphis the first time. Memphis is going to have an opportunity. Memphis, here's a prediction for you. Memphis will play in the Pac-12, right, alongside SMU at some point. That's not based on anything other than for whatever reason, I don't think the Big 12 wants Memphis because they could have had them the first time, and they didn't take them. Now, that was before – no, that wasn't before Yormark, or was it? That was before Yormark, yeah. So maybe he sees the value in their basketball program, and their football program's been pretty good. But I think you still shoot big here, and people get worried about too many teams. I'd take 20. I think you can take 24 because you can just split it 12 and 12, 10 and 10. You don't have to play the other side. I mean, you can play one or two teams from the other side maybe, but you just play conference championship game. In basketball, you don't get to play round robin, unfortunately. That's okay. Like, I don't think there's any issue with going 20 to 24 because you can split it in half and just basically have 2 leagues. Like, go for that. Because it lets you play games all over the radar. TVs, like if I'm a TV executive and I get that many options at games in different windows, that's inventory, man. Like that's okay to me. You got to make it worth my time. Like, I don't want, no offense to Oregon State, Washington State, but if you're giving me late night windows that feature Stanford games or, Arizona, like that has value. That for sure has value. Oregon and Washington certainly would. It's a time for the Big 12 to be aggressive. Big 12's in a position of power here, maybe even more than we thought they were. I think they're even in a better position than we would have said they could have been in a month ago. And here we go. Like, all the rumors are out there now. Colorado, were they the domino? We'll find out. I think in the next 2 weeks, maybe even sooner than that. 869-1240, congratulations to Kevin, who will check out a little Wind Surge baseball, courtesy of us here at Sports Daily. It's all Brockton Caster, Jed Chambers producing. We'll be right back.